This is Christine A. Smith, founder of the PreActYourAge Journal and host of the Aging Better Network, a website of resources for actively retired individuals. My guest on this podcast will introduce their own product or service in just a few minutes. Hello, Elizabeth. Is it still morning where you are, or are you already in the afternoon?
We are in the afternoon, but how are you, Christine? So great to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Before we started recording, I was trying to remember the first time that I ever heard your name, and I've just been following you around and figuring things out. And what a thrill to have you go, sure, I'll be a guest. I am so grateful. I'm just going to jump right in and say, what have you done right for someone who was challenged by their aging?
I love that question, first of all, Christine, because I think a lot of times as family caregivers, we sometimes beat ourselves up about what we're doing wrong and second guessing everything. And so something that I've done right makes me think of my being a family caregiver for my mom, who had a lot of a cocktail of different comorbidities and things when I was caring for her. And I think one of the things I did right was that I really pushed my mom I was the tough love daughter. There's three of us, and I have three brothers and two sisters. And I would say I was the tough love daughter, that I really pushed her to keep her mobility going as much as she could possibly do. She would sometimes say, I think I'm ready for a wheelchair. And I'm like, Mom, let's just keep trying the walker. Even a little bit is better than nothing to keep you moving, and encouraging her to do that. And then likewise to just be as independent for as long as she could. So if there was anything that she could do herself, even if it took a little bit longer, I would push her to do that, because one, that kept her, mentally engaged and physically engaged, but also for me as her primary caregiver, it was one less thing on my plate. So maybe a little bit of a selfish part there too.
Not selfish at all. It keeps the lungs going, and it keeps that attitude of, hey, I'm glad to be part of this today. What a difference. My background is going into homes, and someone has already kind of given up. It's the crumple has begun. And to be a fresh voice and a fresh outlook, and find out that that individual absolutely still has opinions and has favorites, and there's some life and spark. So good job keeping that spark going.
I won't say it wasn't always easy. It's not like I didn't get any resistance, but I do think it was the right decision.
Yay. I love that. So I'm going to ask you to describe how you felt when something came at you and you were totally unprepared for it, having to do with aging.
Yes. Well, I called 2014 my husband and I's spiral year, because we were squeezed in the sandwich generation, caring for our two active kids, and both of us trying to help our aging parents, both parents, him, his mom. And we felt like completely unprepared. We were overwhelmed. We were overwhelmed mentally and physically with everything that we had on our plate. We were working our full-time jobs. We were in the peak of our careers. We were, emotionally exhausted. And then if I'm being honest, part of me was angry, and I was resentful that, my parents and his mom had the lifestyle choices that they had made over their years had really put us in a caregiving spot that was premature, in my opinion. Like, my parents are no longer with me. My mother-in-law no longer with me. I still got a lot of years to live, hopefully, but that part made me angry. And I was also frustrated at the fragmented healthcare system, and just really felt like sometimes when I was accompanying her to appointments, or I was in the hospital situation with one of them, that they would should all over me, like about the care that I needed to do, but nobody was really asking how I was doing or how I was feeling as a caregiver and what support and resources I could use. And that frustrated me.
I was thinking about that. That phrase has been used by a lot of people, and that's shoulding all over you. And as I typed that into a post, I realized that should, SHOULD, they're shoulding, you should have, I should have, oh, if I shouldn't.
It's just a
And
guilt.
I realize it's the beginning of the word shoulder. And I was thinking it just heaps up. You can't just let it roll off. These are people that you love. These are people you've been upset with. These are people you feel guilty about. These are people you want one more beautiful time with, upcoming graduations or what have you.
It's a word, should is a word, like literally when I write my blog posts, I do a find for it because I don't like that word. It doesn't feel very validating. It feels like what you're putting out into the world is just not enough. And it brings up feelings of guilt. And I didn't like it when people did that to me. And so I'm, very cautious of using that word.
I noticed a sign yard recently. You are enough. And I just hope that as people drive by that, it's like, not did I do enough, but am I just my existence? So I just want to thank you right now for taking care, for giving care, for just caring enough to show up for your parents. Some people don't. They're, it's like they move farther away.
I mean, nope. And I will say, Christine, like I'm a better advocate for family caregivers than I was wasn't a horrible family caregiver, but like I said, I was a little bit of the tough love, less of a nurturing. You can do this, so which there's a place for that, but I'm, I kept having to learn the patience over and over again. I was like, okay, I get the message. I'm supposed to be learning something here. So I'm not super in an active caregiving role now, other than a support role for my older brother who has a developmental disability. So we tagged him and tag team as siblings and help him. But my sister is his primary caregiver.
Wow. I thank you for that too, for supporting your sister, your brother, whoever is going, and your brother that deals with his own situation. You in a support role, people are looking for support. Somebody hold me up. Somebody say the words that I'm thinking so that I can go, yes. And I'm just so glad. So you have been patient because it's time for you to ask me a question that we have not discussed before this recording.
Okay, Christine, here's my question for you. If you could wave your magic wand, what's one thing that you would like to see in your lifetime that is going to change in regards to aging or caregiving?
Oh, boy, am I going to love answering that. Oh, thank you. Did you check ahead of time? Have you been reading my diary? Thank you for asking that.
It's a question I love to ask people in general. Like I just, what would you want to be different, to be true, Yeah,
I'm going to be waving that wand, I think, for the next 30 years to make that wish come true on my own.
You're Glenda the good fairy, by the way, not the wicked witch one.
Thank you.
Yes. Is it Glenda or Glinda? I don't know. Whoever she is, she's beautiful in Wizard of Oz.
I love that you said that. Hey, let's take a hydration break and we'll come right back.
Sounds good.
The Pre-Act Your Age journal guides you to pre-plan for the emotional and relational impacts of growing older. Practice navigating one aspect of aging at a time with Pre-Act Your Age. While your mind is clear, your emotions are calm, and your relationships are deep.
Yay. And we're not kidding. Hey, caregiver. Hey, person who's aging. Hey, person who just tuned in because they're trying to figure out what is this pre-act your age. Take a hydration break. I love it. I love it. We do have, between the two of us, my husband and I, we do have one aging parent, my mom. And I love it that she's got a really pretty glass from my sister, a really pretty drinking, reminder to keep hydrated. And that's very important,
I've got mine.
as you were just talking about, hey, taking care of yourself now is making a difference down the line. And the people who are going to care about you in the future will be like, oh, it's a good thing she hydrated. So I'm down to 11 left of these scenarios. These scenarios catapult you into your own future. And in these scenarios, you are not able or not available to make an important decision for you, for yourself. In other words, you cannot voice your opinion or your wishes on your own. So your answer to the scenario will be a particular person, a particular professional. It might be a document. It might be an organization that should make that decision for you. It could be someone you've just delegated this to that is very neutral, has your best interest in their mind and on paper, but maybe is emotionally detached from how things feel. When you're making decisions and the issues are coming left and right. So you have been through that vicariously. So I think you're going to do great, but any answer that you give is the right answer because it's your answer. So please choose a number between 1 and 11.
My lucky number is number 7.
There we go. There it is. All righty. So technology and communication trends are speeding away from you. Who or what do you choose to counsel you about retaining what you need and enjoy from electronic connectedness?
That's a great question. It's interesting because I was in the profession of IT for many years before I kind of entered the caregiving world. So I'm not a developer, but I have a functional brain for that. So I'll have to kind of, I'm pretty good with technology and not afraid of it now. But assuming I fast forward into the years ahead and that happens and I'm landsliding away from it because it changes on a dime, and learning something new every single day, particularly in this space, I would say based upon what I saw with my mom and my dad, as far as particularly my mom, is the patience level of the people of me as her direct child was not as great in that area as my daughter was. So I am hoping to have future grandchildren. And I would say that I would recommend that generation would be the one to help, because I have just witnessed that they have a lot of patience. So to be determined their names, but my kids, Natalie and Jacob, they're kids, whether they're adopted. My daughter is planning to adopt Nicaraguan kids. And my son, says he's going to have some, but I'm expecting something to happen there.
So you saw your daughter as a granddaughter.
Yes.
Having just this, grandma, think of it
Mimi,
this way,
or
Mimi? What?
Yes. And I would get frustrated. I'd be like, I've told her this, before, she was good. She would have her iPad. It had that little, it had like a little bean bag, so it would sit up on stuff, but she would get confused on things. She would get down little wormholes and rabbit holes. And Natalie just had a really good way in particular of saying, Mimi, here's how you do it, Mimi. And or here's how you find your Kindle books and your magic puzzles that she liked to do. And she had the patience of Job for sure.
Awesome. I love that. How would you feel about doing another scenario?
Let's do it.
All right. Anything but 7 between 1 and 11.
Let's do number 4.
You got it. Number 4, there has been turmoil in the senior community where you reside, the details of which have greatly concerned some of your loved ones to the point of renting a moving van. Who or what should investigate and report back to you about this turmoil?
Well, there's, depending on how serious it is, but I would say my primary caregiver, whoever that person is, whoever my trusted individual is, that's being my advocate, when I can't be my advocate for myself, I would want them to really dive in. Hopefully they've learned some journalist qualities from me as probing questions, and can really get to the bottom of that, and really hopefully they'll be direct and say, this is not acceptable, and here's some ulterior motives. But if we're at a last resort and they need to move, then I know that person, that primary caregiver, would be equipped to they've seen by example that, we're beyond the age where we're going to move ourselves anywhere. So they would hire somebody, because it's backbreaking work, moving. You got to have people who are professionals. So there's something called two men in a truck here. So hopefully they would get something like that where we could, and they would find me a good spot, that whatever was the turmoil at the assisted living would be solved at the next one. I wouldn't want them to take me back into their home or anything. So I hope that they wouldn't do that.
Wow, you have voiced so many things, the processes that you've already gone through or that you're going through right now in your mind. It should be this way.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm anxious. I'm the good kind of anxious to jump forward and have you talk to our audience about what you do, your endeavors, and how you bless everyone. However, I haven't answered your question yet. So while I finish formulating that, I'm going to ask you to recall how someone that you knew pre-acted their future age. So it may be something that they wrote down. It may be something that they talked with you or talked with someone else about. Or maybe they just took action way in advance. There was no issue, no crisis. They just said, you know what, let's just get this taken care of, or at least get the ball rolling so that if I need it in the future, it's there. So I'm going to ask you if you've experienced that, and I'm going to think about my magic wand.
Yeah, so I have experienced that. I think, being that we went through this experience with my parents, and we were luckier than many, that my dad was very organized. They never threw anything away, was the only real problem that we witnessed. Is like sometimes we weren't sure which was still valid type of thing, because they kept everything. But being that we've lived through that as siblings, I would say my sister Susie, who was mom's primary caregiver the last 4 years of mom's life, and then is now the primary caregiver for my brother, is living proof that, we don't want to repeat this for our kids. So she has 4 kids. She's divorced. And so she wants to make sure that she does not leave her kids in a lurch. So she has learned about something called a legacy drawer, I think that Dave Ramsey calls it, where kind of everything is together, and she's made her kids aware of that. She's got all her documents as far as power of attorney and advance directives and all of those things in place. She's got her binder systems of finances and health for herself, and then for my brother, because she's his primary caregiver. And so if something were to happen to her, the primary caregiver part of my brother will need to land on somebody. So we would know how to get to that information too. And that brings peace of mind, I think, for all of us. We've even had jokes that, hey, maybe we should start putting our favorite photos together in a shared album. So when something happens to us, our kids can just go to this shared album and pick what photos we love of ourselves, because we've had to do that for our parents. And we're like, we know that they were sick and they were going to pass. Why didn't we get this all together before the very end? So that would be a very proactive thing to do, is even pick out, like, I like this photo, put this on my prayer card.
You're making plans right in front of me. I feel so privileged to just hear a person like you, which you're about to let everybody know how much you're in this. There was a word that you said at the beginning of this half hour, and that was overwhelmed. And I'm on the West Coast, the Pacific Ocean. And recently there's been some storms there and what they call sneaker waves. And someone was filming at the coast and caught a man and a lady and a dog, as my mother said, running for their life away from a huge wave that just seemed to come out of nowhere. So in that moment, we know perfectly well, neither of those people were thinking about, now, what should we do for dinner? Or let's plan our next vacation. Or they are thinking, you, me, dog, away from the overwhelm. So you're in the middle of it. How do you, when you're in the middle of just being overwhelmed, think, wow, we should put together some pictures for, so that, yeah.
I call that practical self-care, Christine. Like, for me, it's self-care is sometimes just about getting your paperwork together, because for me, self-care is anything that's going to make me feel more energized and make me feel more peace, so that I can get a good night's rest at night. And so if these things are swirling around in my head, then that's not happening. And so that's practical self-care for me. It's like, sometimes you just got to get your stuff together in order.
Oh boy, I'm going to answer your question so we can jump into what you do. So here's my magic wand. Do I have? Yeah. Okay. This is black. It should have a white tip. So my magic wand that I'm going to be waving for the next several years is that I've identified, at this point, I'm just having to cut at 52, because that's good for a year, right? 52 weeks. So I've identified 52 general aspects of aging, challenges, issues. It's not a specific disease. It's not a specific, you know what I mean by aspects that could be positive, could go negative. So, but I've identified 52 of them, and I become a curriculum writer for high school students, because there are countries where gerontology, as one of the sciences for students 16 and up, it's junior college kind of a thing. That is one of the electives, on top of all the, biology, etc. And so people as young as 16 can take gerontology classes. If those 16, 17, 18-year-olds have an opportunity to become aware of what the future is like for their own grandparents, for their neighbors, and for themselves, although that's hard to project that far into the future. That's my curriculum, is to project yourself into the future and not think wrinkles. Think, I feel like a human being that's still going upwards and pursuing things. And so this sort of a thing, I just want to take care of ahead of time. So when I get to it, it's not overwhelming. I have put together just a small plan of action. I'm aware of it. It isn't catching me out of nowhere. I see our country coming to a point where people don't say, why don't people tell you about this? How are, fragmented system. It won't be a fragmented system. Those students will either become caregivers professionally, become really capable, ready, caregiving people for their loved ones, or they will go into the legislature and say, this shouldn't be hard. We're either all going to age, or someone is going to be taking care of our needs.
Yes.
And this should not be hard. It should be like, hey, come here. We're just going to direct you to everything you need, So there's my magic wand.
I think it's fabulous. It normalizes the conversation around these topics. And just like we have, we prepare people for birth,
Yes.
we can prepare people for the other end, which is a privilege to really have that all in place.
Yeah, birthing doulas and aging doulas.
Mm-hmm.
There are death doulas, but aging is continued life. Very different.
Yes.
So,
aging well. Yes, I love it.
Thank you for asking me that question. I am thrilled to have done this. I have just pre-acted my age. My kids will be able to look back at this and go, that's why she did that. That's what was important to her. So, Elizabeth Miller, please let our audience know what you do to bless others, your endeavors, things that are available right now, and be sure to let them know how they can contact you and get a hold of what you have for them.
Thank you. Well, it's I started Happy Healthy Caregiver because it was something that I wish existed for me, frankly, and my husband when we were in the throes of caregiving. And so what people can expect to find on happyhealthycaregiver.com is support and resources and tools about how to take care of themselves as a caregiver. And self-care for caregivers is everything, like we mentioned, practical, professional, social, financial, physical, emotional. There's a lot of different layers to self-care. It's not just about eating well and sleeping well. So you'll find lots of, blog posts. I've got a podcast with over 130 episodes called Happy Healthy Caregiver that people can tap into because caregivers are on the go. So this gives you a means to do that. I've got a journal that you can find there where you can, yay, Christine has one too. So it's got 365 writing prompts to just help you be more intentional about prioritizing your self-care. I do coaching so people can get a complimentary session as a caregiver coach. I'm not a licensed counselor, not a financial planner. I'm not a legal person, but if you want to talk about caregiving and feel validated and maybe help, put your self-care plan together or just help you get a little bit ideas about the next steps, then that might be something that people want to look into. I also have a daughterhood circle here in the Atlanta area where we have an in-person support group that we meet monthly, and there's daughterhood circles throughout the US at daughterhood.org. And I'm an ambassador with a nonprofit called No Barriers USA that offers wonderful, amazing caregiver retreats, 3-day respite events at no expense to the caregiver that allow people to come and get that community and connection. So I don't know when this is going to air, but the application period is open till March 18th. So definitely want to seize that for 2022. So find out all about that at happyhealthycaregiver.com.
Oh, I am so glad you said no barriers. I'm learning more about that. I've watched some of the videos, so no barriers. It's worth going there to see what that's about. Daughterhood circle. So daughterhood meaning, wow, this is my spot right now for my parents. I'm daughtering them.
Yeah.
Before they were always parenting me.
Yeah, parenthood, motherhood, daughterhood. It's its thing. So
Wow.
And then one more thing,
Say
Christine, that's
yes,
new
please.
is caregiving.com is getting ready to launch their champion program, which will be able to tap, and I'm one for Atlanta caregiving.com champion, where they can tap into resources, local resources.
Say that one again.
Caregiving.com. It's the champions. And then if they want to use their expertise in caregiving and aging to support caregivers, Carriers Training Academy is a place where you can be. That's where I got my certification to be a certified caregiving consultant.
That probably assures people who are practical minded like you are going, does this person just talk about it, or do they understand more, more
Exactly.
general than their own situation? Because people can talk about caregiving. And even when we moved in here, our neighbor across the street said that she was reading that book, The 36-Hour Day. And I think that's still a staple for a lot of people.
A lot of people, dementia caregivers, people with cognitive issues. Yes, I've got a plethora of books. I do a book haul on caregiving or self-care books about every other month. I'm an avid reader. So I live, breathe, and talk caregiving pretty much 24/7 almost, it feels like. But it's what I'm meant to do. So it's, been through this experience, and I'm hoping that I can pay it forward to somebody else and make their journey just a little bit easier. That's a win.
And you did at CareCon. So that's
Yay.
another thing, CareCon. So like conference, like Comic-Con,
Yeah, with
not comic
HSP.
books.
And they've recorded all of those so that, you can go on
Yes.
happyhealthycaregiver.com, go to my events page. And if somebody's recorded something, I'll put it out there so people can get it. Join the email list. I'll push out all of this stuff because there's a lot, like it's fragmented. So you don't have to worry about finding it all. Let me help you, fast track to it.
I love it. So 3 things that you want to be: happy, healthy, caregiver, and go to Elizabeth. And you said you even provide a free half hour.
Yep.
So you are just a dynamo. Thank you. Thank you so much for being my guest. And I will see you in a few weeks because both of us are going to be a guest on a live show.
Perfect. Thank you.
Please visit my guest. You'll find their link in the show notes. I'm glad you listened in on our conversation as we both navigated one aspect of aging at a time on this Pre-Act Your Age podcast. All of the ideas and thoughts expressed on any Pre-Act Your Age podcast are candid conversations and opinions. For medical, financial, or legal advice, consult a professional.